Okay, let's go on to the next question. So the next question is, in my body typing journey, I have figured out that my bone structure consists of sharpened and moderate lines. So I'm considering to be either DC, SD, or D. So that's dramatic classic, soft dramatic, or dramatic. What would be a good test to rule out which type I am? Is there a specific kind of dress or hairstyle which I could try or test that would show the difference between the three types? Well, I have a curvy hourglass figure, full lips, and round eyes, but the flesh on my cheeks and arms seems tight. Thanks. Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing because, having round features, for example, having really soft lips, having really soft and round eyes, counts for something, but it doesn't count for as much as taut flesh can count for, because taut flesh is something that is going to show so many angles of the face. It's going to show so much more sharpness of the face, especially if you already have sharp features or sharp cheekbones or a sharp jawline. Having taut flesh on your cheeks is going to really add a lot of sharpness to your look, and that sharpness could be more than the softness that only your eyes and your lips could contribute, if that makes sense. So it's a good observation that your physique is tight, right? So your cheeks are tight, and if your flesh is tight too, the same thing happens with sort of having an hourglass shape. So like Jennifer Love Hewitt, she is mixed taut, even though she is really known for her hourglass shape. If you take a look at her in really glamorous things, it can look a little bit off, and it's surprising to see her look really good in flamboyant gamine or mixed taut, even though she's an hourglass. So the whole point here is that the flesh and the physique is really important. However, I really love your question because you're not really stressing, this sort of, are the cheeks tight? Are they not tight? Things like that. When in reality, your real question, which is the correct question, is what can you do to test between these three body types that you're considering for yourself? Okay, luckily, these are easy to test for, okay? These dramatic classic versus soft dramatic versus dramatic, or blended sharpened soft, and sharpened, okay? It doesn't matter what we call them. The point is that dramatic classic is going to be different from the other two in that let me start with soft dramatic. That's the easiest one. That's the one that's most different from the other two. So if you're sharpened soft dramatic, I call sharpened soft having sharpened bone structure and a soft physique on top, okay? Soft cheeks, soft physique, or primarily soft and rounded shapes on top. So it's, again, hard to say what exactly causes it. It depends on the person. For example, you could have taut cheeks, you could have really full eyes and really big lips, and that will sort of overpower and make you more soft than your taut cheeks, things like that. So the real test is always the lines. So the way that you can test sharpened soft is always going to be glamorous costume jewelry. So if you can pull off glamorous costume jewelry and really big glamorous hair, like Sophia Loren style hair, you are basically either sharpened soft or rounded. You're not any other type. You are not going to be sharpened and be able to pull off costume jewelry. It's going to look very severe on you, and it's going to make you look very, very severe, very angular, and it'll kind of highlight the absence of softness that you have, if you wear costume jewelry as sharpened, especially big costume jewelry. Although if you do that intentionally, if you're really looking to have a very sort of like intimidating, mysterious woman type of thing, then definitely that kind of look for sharpened can work. And I've seen Keira Knightley have this really big hair and sort of, maybe some costume jewelry. I don't really remember, but the point is that I think I actually mentioned this in my video called Break Kibby's Rules, super old video on YouTube. But yeah, so the point is that costume jewelry is going to look just right on sharpened soft. It's going to bring out the lack of softness in sharpened, And that can be, if it's done carefully, a very interesting look, or it can be an unflattering juxtaposition if it's not done carefully. That's the nature of juxtapositions, is it's sort of, if it's done intentionally, it can actually be really interesting to work with. But if it's not done intentionally, it can come off as very disconnected. Okay, so that's how costume jewelry will look on both those types. And then if you are blended sharpened and you try costume jewelry, you're definitely going to find that you look ridiculous, basically. It's way too much, and especially with glamorous hair. The same thing works with satin. So if you try satin, the really, kind of, or like really silky silk, the shiny types of fabrics, really only sharpened soft out of those three types, blended sharpened, and sharpened soft, only sharpened soft can pull off satin, sparkle, glamorous hair, costume jewelry. So that's how you can rule out sharpened soft, or potentially confirm that you're sharpened soft. Now, the difference now we're only left now with blended sharpened and sharpened, which can be a difficult thing to understand, because one of the biggest difference between the two, or the main difference, or maybe even the main difference, is really the vertical line. So sharpened is going to have a longer vertical line, so that means that sharpened has a really small head. So if you already know that you have a small head, then you might really consider sharpened. However, at the same time, this is one of the most difficult things to kind of tell about yourself, if you still haven't determined your body type or anything like that, is your vertical line, because you can't really ask people like, how tall do I look in person, because your friends already know how tall you are, so it can be very confusing to figure out vertical line. So instead of trying to figure out, your vertical line, because at the end of the day, it's all about, finding what looks good on you. So the best way to do that is to try stuff on. So the main difference is going to be asymmetry between blended sharpened and sharpened. Why? Because a long vertical line is going to be able to handle asymmetry, especially asymmetry at the shoulder. So an asymmetrical neckline where one shoulder is completely bare and one shoulder is covered. So that is the asymmetry that I'm talking about. And only sharpened out of those three types is going to look good with an asymmetrical neckline. Also, beveled sharp, flamboyant natural looks good with that asymmetry, again, because they have that really long vertical line. Okay, so the long vertical line is going to make asymmetry at the shoulders look really good, and at the same time, sharpened soft doesn't look good with asymmetry at the shoulders, although they can do it. It's not that bad because they still have that long vertical line. Sharpened soft doesn't look too good with asymmetry at the shoulders because they have that softness. So soft can kind of look plump. It kind of has an upward movement. So that's why when you are trying to pull down sharpened soft with that asymmetry, because asymmetry has a way of pulling the eye down, so really only sharpened can handle that. So yes, and then that means that blended sharpened can really not handle asymmetry in terms of the neckline. However, they can handle asymmetry in terms of the parting of the hair. And both blended sharpened and sharpened both look good in geometric jewelry and deeper colors and an asymmetrical part to the hair and an emphasis on the eyes for the makeup and neutral colors for the makeup. So there are a ton of similarities. The main difference is going to be the asymmetry to the neckline, and also the longer lines, but that's not as easy to tell, I feel like. But another difference between blended sharpened and sharpened is the ultra long line of sharpened. So that means that everything from head to toe being one color with a deep V and everything would be flattering. But sometimes blended sharpened might feel like it's not such a big difference. It's not like the difference between, sharpened and mixed or something. It might not be that big of a difference, and you might not be able to tell looking at yourself in the mirror. if, that ultra long line is something that looks good on you or not. I think the asymmetry might be a more obvious test. Okay, so let's summarize. So, Sharpened Soft or Soft Dramatic is the only one that's going to look good in costume, jewelry, and glamorous hair and sparkle and satin. Sharpened is going to be the only one that looks good with an asymmetrical neckline out of those three, okay? So this is all only out of those three. Sharpened is the only one that will look good with an asymmetrical neckline where one shoulder is showing and one shoulder is not. And Blended Sharpened is going to be the one that doesn't look good in either of those things and looks better with a symmetrical neckline. So yeah, I hope that gave you some ideas for how you can test these three types.